Hello everybody, we are pulling off the grid for KRA race number 2. This is the feature for LO206 Masters. Out there, this is at Newcastle Motorsports Park. Their LO206 Masters class, I believe, is like 40 in age and over, and I think there's some kind of weight specification for if you're younger. I'm not for sure on that one. But the overall, driver and cart is 370 pounds. It's slick out. There's one guy off to the side right there. He's one of the faster guys, qualified further up in the grid than I did. And he spun out. I think somebody else is about to go around. Yep, there's one over there on the right. And then we got 2 more right in front of me. So that's at least 4. I don't think anybody else spun out. But as you can see, it was cold. It was very slick. And it wreaked a little havoc on the outlap right there for our feature race. The schedule for the day was 2 practice sessions, 5 minutes apiece, then a 5-minute qualifying session, and then just a feature. With it being really cold out, at least for me, I would have loved to have like a pre-final, final setup, because I take it easy when it's slick out like this. I'm not super practiced in the really, in these type of conditions. It's really slick. I was surprised at how slick it actually can be. And, therefore, I never really hit any hard laps. And I don't live close enough to go out here and practice, so all of my practice is race day. I talked to some of the other folks in some of the other classes, but also this class. They came out and they practiced on Saturday. This is a Sunday race, so I live a little too far away that coming out and practicing on a Saturday is generally not in my schedule. So for me, a little more practice, a little more lap time or seat time prior to the final would definitely help me out. So during one of the practices, I also had some issues with my clutch. I decided to go out and try running a Premier Stinger on this race, and for whatever reason, I didn't, I've watched videos and I didn't really see anybody put any Loctite on them, but the screws that hold the back plate in on my clutch, all of them came out. 2 of them are just gone. They're laying on the track somewhere, and 1 was just dangling. On their way out, they all gouged into my seat because, my clutch is relatively close to my seat, and, almost cut a big old, 3-inch diameter hole in the side of it. So it was not good, and it cut one of my practice sessions short. And then I had to scramble around because I had a second Stinger with me, but I decided I should probably just stick with a flame because that's what I normally use. But the flame that I brought, I was missing a washer or 2, and I had to scramble around for that, although it wasn't that big of a deal. So we're coming back around. We're going to try to start again after the big spin out outlap, and we waved this one off. I almost lock them up a little bit. I had to do a little quick corrections so I didn't run into the back of the 42, but all was good and we're coming back around. Now, one thing all of this restarting did was it set my fastest lap as 1 minute and 10 seconds. So for the remainder of the race, where under race conditions, all of the laps are usually 1 minute, 20 seconds plus. My Micron 5 kept trying to compare to a 1 minute and 10 second abbreviated lap that we're doing right now. So that was messing with me the whole race. I did not get good, instant data, or I didn't get any good feedback from my Micron during the race. It would show that for the whole lap I would have solid green bars across the top, making me think, oh, I'm way ahead. I'm really killing it this lap. But once I got down to one of these close to the end corners, all of a sudden everything went red because that's when I went past 1 minute 10 seconds. So we are going to get going on this lap though right now. I usually do a couple takes on the voiceover. Oh, that was fun times right there. So we had a few people stack them up right there. I was watching for that. I came way off the gas and just slowly drove through them. Now, it would have been nice if I could have stuck on the back end of that pack up there, but they're gone. As you can tell, I was towards the back of the grid, so I did not qualify well. And, any chance of at least trying to, When you have carts in front of you, you kind of have a gauge for how hard you can go into corners. That was all gone for the most part. You'll also notice on these laps that I seem to be hitting the rev limiter a lot. During the practice sessions, I had 2 less teeth on my rear sprocket than what's on it right now during this video. And at the time, because it was cold and I wasn't really pushing really hard or getting to closer to where I think I could actually be in lap times, I thought that throwing a few more teeth on would be beneficial. But after about 2 or 3 laps during this final, I realized that I am geared way too low. Now, right now I can't really hear my audio from the video as I'm doing the voiceover, but I'm pretty sure that I was hitting the rev limiter on that last little straight before I went to that left turn right there. I'm going to hit it pretty soon coming down this straight. And as you can see, the 2 guys behind me just came screaming up on me once they got further down the straightaway. Not hitting it yet, but once I get up here and make this left, heading down to the next corner, I'm pretty sure I hit it again. If I'm not hitting it yet, we are early on and my tires aren't warmed up. Definitely halfway through the race, I'm tacking out all over the place. I knew those guys were coming, so, they got under me right there. I wasn't going to try to make myself a nuisance for the 2 of them. They came screaming up on me. But right now, just glad I haven't crashed for the most part. That was my main goal. On the first race when I came out, I blew apart my bumper on the second lap and just really didn't get much out of the whole day. I wanted to make sure that didn't happen during this race. As you can see, my gearing's pretty good for coming down here for a while. They did not really pull away from me, and I'm kind of pulling them back in just a little bit through the turns, but I think they're really going to stretch me out here in a minute or 2, coming down right through here. And they were going through these turns down here a little faster than me. I was not flying through them like I was at the Grands. I was still being a little hesitant. Still early in the race. I didn't want to go busting up my car driving through all that dirt, so, there's nobody that close in front of me. Driving like a wild man isn't going to get me a win right now at this stage. Again, this is my first real season trying to race here, so I've kind of, I won't say resigned myself, but realistically, I know that I'm not going to be out here dominating on these first couple of races. There's a lot of learning here. It's a different track. It's a different style of racing than, it's not vastly different, but it's different than how you have to handle tracks like Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati and G&J Kartway out there in Camden, Ohio. They're definitely different than this. This is, pretty flat out. You've really got to get used to kind of pushing everything around the edges on these corners right here. And until you get really familiar with how your kart's going to behave, if I just go barreling around these, just, hoping and praying that my kart hangs in there, I might be spending some time out in the grass and fixing stuff that I don't want to fix right now. So I'm going to try to ease up to the limit instead of just trying to blaze right over it right now and back myself back down. Yeah, those 2 guys are still within eye shot. They haven't really gone crazy pulling away from me. I think I mentioned it was right around 40 degrees, I think. Super cold. I did learn from KRA 1, so I went out with my air pressures at 26 psi. So I didn't really struggle with, it was still a little slick for me, but it wasn't near as bad as it was when I went out at KRA 1. Even though it was a little bit warmer on the first race. Not a lot, but a few degrees warmer. My motor seemed to do well. Again, I kind of did some dumb stuff to myself that, looking back on it's kind of funny, but at the time, had me confused for about a good 6-7 minutes. Last year, my motor had like a spring return on my choke. So whenever I'd pull, the choke up to start it, it would just pop back down. I wouldn't have to push it down. So this season, different motor, no spring return on my choke. So I fired it up, let it run for a little bit, and then I'd never put the choke back down. Then it started running weird, and I'm like, what is going on with this thing? So I'm like, man, this isn't sounding right. So I started fooling around with it, trying to figure out why it's, not running right. I'm giving it gas, and it's, if you've ever tried to run your LO206 with the choke on and it's already warmed up, it pops and sputters and just does not run right. Doesn't rev up quick, that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, what is going wrong with this? And then one of my buddies came over and he's like, oh man, maybe it's your spark plug, because he didn't notice that my choke was pulled up either. So, I hurry up and switch out a spark plug, because we're getting closer to coming up to the final. I just got done changing my gear, putting 2 teeth back in, which was, adding 2 teeth, which ends up being dumb. Now that's a good place to pass right there, not to mess with my story, but the 124 ducked under me pretty good right there. I go through this corner not too bad on him with my lower gearing. I think I maybe pull back up just a little bit. Up to a point. And the 30, I think he's hanging tough right behind. Again, I think with my changes to the geometry, turning into the corners, it felt pretty good. I just have to get a little more used to it. I think initially I'm putting just a little bit too much input in, because that's the amount of input I used to have to put in. So I've got to back that down just a little bit so I don't swing the rear end around as much. I think right here I'm going to roll out into the rumble strips, or not yet, but about halfway through this lap I'm going to go a little bit wide and hit the rumble strips, and I think the 30 is going to capitalize on me. So anyways, back to the story. I've got the, I'm starting to freak out a little bit, because all the adjustments, I mess with my idle screw a little bit, my air mixture screw a little bit. I'm like, dude, it's still, it sounded bad. And I switch out my spark plug, and it's fired up, and it was weird. At first I'm like, oh, it sounds a little better. But in reality it didn't. And then I realized, I think my buddy was standing over there. That's where I went. That's where I went in the rumble strips. 30 got right past me. But he's like, oh, he looks over, and we both see the choke sticking up, and then I flop it down, and we're all good to go. So anyways, that was a little drama that I didn't need. So again, that gear does all right, for a little bit. It does really good coming around right here, I think. I knew I was going to tack out, so there was no reason to try to duck under him, because when I bumped him, I was pretty much right at the max of as fast as I was going to be able to go. So I just gave him a bump. Maybe he got his fastest lap right there, hopefully. But the race is starting to wind down. Not much is going to change right here. I did get my fastest laps towards the end of the race. The winners ran in the 120s. I don't know if anybody got almost to the 119s, but they were definitely in the 120s. Again, you get I'd say sometimes the top 10, 12 carts are all within just a few tenths of each other at Newcastle. And then there was another medium-sized group of folks running in the 122s. It seemed there's kind of a little bit of a gap between there, and then I was in the 123s. So again, I've got some room to make up, or some distance to make up on these folks in front of me. Would have been nice to maybe go out on a little bit better gear than I went out on, just to see if I would have done better with that. Maybe knock at least a second or so off. Now up this weekend we have KRA 3. It will be, looking at the information that Newcastle posted out on their Facebook page, it should be the exact same layout that they ran for the 2022 Grands. I don't know if Cup Karts, always uses that layout every year for the Grands, but just in case they do, it would be a good one to attend if you plan on running the Grands this fall. So we're going to jump ahead. Basically, this is just the last lap. Threw it in there because the flagman, he does a good checker flag wave, so I wanted to keep that in there. But again, as I was saying, this weekend it'll be the same layout as 2022 Cup Karts Grand Nationals, and it's a fun layout. And the good thing is, when you come out for the Grands, you know, you do a ton of laps, so I'm relatively practiced up on that. Just hope it's a bit warmer. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Keep on karting, and we'll see you at the next video.